Hello friends, welcome to another belated video. I'm sorry, it's been a while, but turns out adulting is quite time taxing, so let's get this video to 200 million so that I can do this full time and never have to work again. I'm filming on this side of the room today because my sewing desk is a disaster. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this lovely Regency ball gown. And this was made for a ball in the winter, so there's like a velvet overcoat thing. And I wore it today in the heat of summer, and turns out it works for both. I was not melting too much. My inspiration for this gown mainly came from this reference that I just have on my Regency gown Pinterest board. I loved how it looked kind of like Renaissance or like princely, military. I started with a mock-up, block pattern as always, and then traced that onto pattern paper. After making my pattern, I cut it out of the same cotton voile and sewed that together. This was kind of like a second mock-up, but also it was going to be my lining for my final product. When I decided I liked it, I went for my champagne fabric. I also cut the bodice front and back out of canvas in hopes that it would help me achieve a smoother fit, which, might I add, it really did. I think this was like a 6 or 8 ounce canvas, but pro tip, if you want very smooth bodices, lining them with some sort of structured material is really helpful. Then I basted all the bodice pieces that had canvas. Then I sewed the front and back panels together. So on my bodice here I have this little tie thing at the bust, and the way that I've kind of cut that out of my fabric is I just took the bodice piece that I made that fills in the bust of the garment, and I just kind of like eyeballed this and cut out, I don't know, I just kind of like made a little point. And I've played around with the shape just to get it right. But yeah, I eyeballed it. That's all I wanted to say. So I basically cut pieces for a long tube and then tapered them off at the ends where the bow would tie. I cut 4 of those from my voile, and I serged them together so I had 2 that I could turn inside out. And then I basted the voile to the satin on my bust piece. And to clarify, this bust piece, part of the bodice does not have canvas in it. Just because I didn't want any structure right there, because it would look nicer and less flat, so just thought I'd mention that. Then I stitched on the tie pieces and attached the bust to the bodice. I believe what I did here was I hand sewed the bow together. And I think I just crossed the pieces and then took a little loop of voile fabric and then used that to stitch. For the skirt, you will need the measurement of the waist for just the front piece of the bodice and the length from your underbust to the floor. I also added 2.5 inches for a hem. I believe mine, it looks like, according to my notes, mine was 29 inches across and then 40 inches long. I don't know if that includes the seam allowance though. Then the back will be the bottom measurement of your back panels, and you want to at least double that if you want to gather it for a fuller look, which is a very Regency style. To decide the fullness of the skirt and the width, I just left that up to the width of my fabric. I highly recommend finding a material that's 60 inches wide just so that you have more to work with. I'm using my champagne colored satin with an overlay of voile, the curtains. My curtains are about 51 inches wide, so my circumference of my final skirt is about 120 inches. From my fabric scraps I cut some gussets so I could add some more flare to the skirt. Next I pieced together my skirt, joining the front and the back panels, but leaving the back completely open. I did this deciding to use French seams. Then I took a break to work on the sleeves. First I basted them, the satin to the voile, and then I sewed them up. Gather the top and the bottoms. Then I sewed some tulle in, as well as the cotton lining. The tulle will help shape the sleeves and stay upright. Back to the skirt, I created a 2.5 inch hem and pinned in cotton batting into the satin layer. This is what I did for my Emma replica because I noticed I think when doing my research it said that they sewed cotton batting into the lining just so that the skirt has more shape and structure to it. You could use horsehair, but I think that the cotton really does give it more of a softer silhouette, so I recommend that. I think historically this would usually be done to the petticoats, and then you'd have an outer dress, but I was not intending to wear a petticoat with this one, so I just sewed the batting into the lining of the dress. Sew that in, and then I hand finished the voile layer. After that was finished, I sewed my lining into the bodice. Jumping around here, understitching and then joining the sleeves to the bodice. I hope that I understood what that meant. Now I need to sew up the back of the skirt, leaving about 4 to 6 inches open at the top for a closure. I also stay stitched the 2 skirt layers together. Then I pinned the skirt to my dress form to play around with all my different lace trims. I'm using a combination of white and gold trims that blend richly with the champagne satin and delicate white voile. Basically stab a bunch of pins into that skirt and sew everything in place as best you can. Then I made this gold ribbon to add under the bust. Lastly was all the hand sewing. So I watched Secondhand Lions and did the lining, buttons, and buttonholes, sleeves, added some trim, tacking all of those little finishings. For the Spencer, I started with a mock-up made from the second half of my first mock-up. So I'm here on the floor, and I'm just here to bring you some sewing tips. So I'm going to be making my Spencer out of this very rich blue velvet, which the camera does not do justice, it just makes it look grainy. But it will look glorious with some better lighting, I presume. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about velvet, if you're planning on using velvet. I talked about this, I think, in my Renaissance dress video, but I just thought I might as well review here. So if you're cutting out velvet, it's important to note that velvet has a nap. And what that means is there's these little fibers sticking out of the material. And on my velvet, they're all laying this direction. Which means if I, like, scratch it like this, you can see that, you know, like, they're facing the opposite direction. Now, if you want your dress to look good, you need to cut all your pattern pieces with the nap going the same direction. Otherwise, you might end up with pieces that look darker than others or look like they have a different texture. And so what I did when cutting out my pieces is I folded the fabric the opposite direction that I usually do. Because usually I fold it along the salvage edge to cut it out, but this time I folded it, I have about a yard here, so I just folded it so that the nap is facing down on this side as well as on this side. And that's just going to ensure that I get my pattern pieces cut out correctly, but that's just a little tip in case that was helpful to you, in case you ever want to work with velvet. I started with piecing the bodice together. I have 3 panels, a front and back and side, that both have curved seams. And then cut out my collar piece from canvas to stiffen, and also my lining. Then I actually sewed some boning into the canvas in the back of the collar for added support. Then sandwiching the pieces like so, I sewed just the top edge of the collar. Next, I stitched on the collar. Getting started on the peplum, I have these godet gusset things at a 90-degree angle, and I'm going to sew those good sides facing along the bottom edge. Now to attach those golden pizza slices into our velvet, we are going to pin and sew good sides facing along the edges of the velvet. Pleat and press with the iron. I used the puffed sleeve from my dress pattern to ensure the dress sleeves would fit inside of them, so I took that and pleated it down to the longer part of the sleeve. Then I cut some 2-inch strips of velvet, which will be relevant in just a moment, to make some good old-fashioned spaghetti. Then make some gold ones. Attach some magical trim, sew a few of the ribbons top-stitched to your sleeve. Okay, next I took my little fabric noodle and I have stay-stitched that on either side of my sleeve where the gathered part meets the non-gathered part. And I've just got my little ribbons dangling everywhere. And then on each sleeve I attached another one about 1.5 inches away from the end. And this is going to be like a little, I don't know, like a button tab at the bottom. And just make sure that you do those on opposite ends of the sleeve for each sleeve. Now the sleeve can be sewn up. Attach the sleeves, situating the ribbons and pleats as you go. Decide that's too complicated, shove some M&Ms in your mouth and keep going and decide to stay stitch everything first. Next, attach some of those extra 2-inch ribbons to the base of the bodice for a button tab. Alright, so, I promise I'm still not ill, I'm just recovering. So this is what we've got. I don't know what it looks like when I'm holding it up like this. What does this look like? This is what I have so far. I have also made a lining. It's really not anything too difficult, it's just the same thing as we've done, but with satin. So, lining, that's for when I finish the whole thing. It's giving, like, Prince Edward vibes. It's very Renaissance-y. It's a lot more Renaissance-y than I anticipated. Anyway, here's what we've got. And, I arrive at this dilemma. You see, the camera is about to die. I only have a few hours to finish this before I need it to be done tomorrow. And it's getting dark anyway, so the lighting's gonna be garbage. So, with that being said, I hope you don't mind if I just finish all of this off camera. Honestly, it's just like a bunch of hand stitching and like buttons and things. You've seen me do it hundreds of times before. So anyway, bippity boppity boo. So, let me just show you. I don't know. So I did all of this like gold cording by pinning it in the shapes that I wanted, and then I just put the feed dogs down on my sewing machine and zigzag stitched it to tack it down in like all these places, which is a very quick and easy method for like creating this like corded look. I think maybe I'll do, there's probably going to be a lot more of this on my channel in the future just because I really love this technique, so like you'll get to see that later. Mostly, I think, yeah, just hand finishings. I added trim all around this, the outside of the collar and the inside of the collar. I love that this one has like a white ribbon in it, and then this one like is different. It's like two different pieces of trim. I think I machine sewed this other trim. Yeah, just embellishings. I'm not sure what else to explain about this. I've got these cute sunflower buttons on the back and I have them on the sleeves. There's these little sleeve tabs. They're like tacked to the sleeve, but they're not sewn on, so like I kind of have to like flip them over my wrist when I put on this Spencer. It closes with hook and eyes down the front, and then I have these decorative gold buttons all the way down the front as well. And I also just hand stitched in all of this lining left over from my champagne fabric scraps. And I think that's it. It's really soft. I love it. I really, really hated sewing with this particular velvet because it's so slippery, but I was like in love with the quality of this velvet. It's probably like the most like bougie velvet that I own. I think I paid a pretty penny for this. But yeah, probably never again. Like, it's so soft, the nap. It causes so many problems. Anyway, that's the dress. Get ready for this grand reveal, which is filmed in a gorgeous garden. It's the same as the Emma garden, but like, I just really love how the pictures came out. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Well, friends, that wraps up another video, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to, just subscribe. It's fun. I don't know. Support me, please! I hope that you all have a wonderful day, wonderful sewing adventures of your own, or whatever adventures that you decide to embark on. Love you, bye.